to welcome you to the first of my Brexit specials. I realise that this is very much a last minute arrival, but better late than never. Today I'm going to voice my disgust at the scaremongering of two former politicians who were using blatant scare tactics in Northern Ireland recently. I am of course referring to former Prime Minister John Major and former Prime Minister Tony Blair. The two did a double-team tour of Northern Ireland just over a week ago and came and went in a flash. In fact, they had left the jurisdiction long before most people had realised they had even arrived. They did stay long enough to try to force people to remain by stating, if you leave the EU, then the Northern Ireland peace process will suffer. Now, I am no politician, but even I can see the holes in this argument, and they are Titanic-sized. So I will give my assessment from my perspective on why these two are wrong. To explain my perspective, I will have to take you back to 1998. In this year, the population of Northern Ireland voted on Good Friday on a treaty to end the violence of the Troubles, with specific promises and reassurances from both the British and Irish governments to support these goals. On the same date, in the Republic of Ireland, people voted to support the peace process and agreed to drop several contentious articles from their constitution, which had been a roadblock to these talks. Obviously, this is a huge oversimplification of the situation, but the points I wanted to make from these two sets of votes was this. Both sets of votes passed with a significant majority vote, and this was mainly an agreement between the people of Northern Ireland, with support from the British and Irish governments, facilitated greatly by former US President Clinton. In summary, the EU had sweet FA to do with these agreements. The argument being made by the former Prime Ministers falls apart when you look at the agreements from a logical point of view. The reason that this argument might sound real at first is because Ireland is part of the EU and was part of the EU at the time of the agreement. Therefore, if we leave, then Ireland, as part of the EU, would end their support for the deal. The reason this is bullshit is the following. The Good Friday Agreement was targeted at the people in Northern Ireland. This was an agreement between the Northern Irish population as a whole. The deal involved both sides calling a halt to the fighting and trying to work together to build a better Northern Ireland for their kids. This is what the majority signed up for. As stated before, Ireland, not the EU, voted in conjunction with this agreement at the time, and they agreed to support it. Ireland is a sovereign nation. I do not recall any contingency that stated that either country leaving the EU breached the agreement, and therefore Ireland cannot simply abandon its responsibilities, which to its credit it has met in quite a few ways. It is not in anyone's best interest in the Republic for the Troubles to start up again, as it will not be long before there will be casualties south of the border if they resume. If there is another bomb in Dublin because the Republic destroyed the peace process, that will be another step on the road to a new civil war, which is a lot closer than politicians really want to admit. Now let's look at the UK side of the equation. They are unlikely to want the Troubles to start up again, as the reason they started negotiations with the IRA in the first place is that they'd grown tired of trying to fight them. Given that the UK military has only had cutbacks in the past decade, I do not think they would be keen for a rematch. So let's focus on the people who gave us this message. Two very unpopular former Prime Ministers, one of which, in my opinion, should have been charged with war crimes, swanning into the North, making an outrageous claim, to get people to vote Remain. Would anyone else consider this an own goal?